You've talked about how consensus has been built among politicians. The majority of Americans believe there's human caused climate change. How do you recommend we have better discourse on the subject in our homes and within political institutions?
We've all been around a Thanksgiving table where politics has, reigned supreme and things have become debated and heated. Climate, I'm sure, for a lot of people is the same way, and it doesn't need to be that way. What I recommend for people in their homes is to talk about this in a very holistic way. And I think one of the reasons why the right is so adamant about this being a farce or being something that is wolf in sheep's clothing is issue is because it's kind of got this narrow lens, this non-holistic lens of we need solar, wind, and EVs, and that's it. And we just need to have the government mandate this, and we can solve this problem overnight. And there's a merit in the importance of those things, just like there's a merit in the conservative approach, which is saying we can't get rid of oil and gas, we can't exclude nuclear, we can't continue to ship out all of our manufacturing of solar and wind turbines to China and Russia and other countries. There's truth on both sides of this argument, and so taking a holistic approach at the Thanksgiving dinner table or around the campfire at your summer family reunion is the best way to talk about it, because I can guarantee you, if you're liberal and you ask your conservative uncle or grandpa why they're skeptical of this issue, they'll give you a pretty good reason. And if you ask them if they care about the environment, they'll probably say yes. And if you're that conservative uncle or grandpa, and you say those same questions to the liberal granddaughter or grandson, uh, why do you care about this issue so much, and why are you skeptical of the conservative approach, I think that you'd get some really good answers. And then you can start to have a conversation about how to alleviate both of those things. But if you come in, guns a blazing saying oil and gas is the enemy and I hate anything related to oil and gas, or solar, wind, and EVs are just a liberal way to take over the world, like, you're not going to get anywhere. And I think that that's unfortunately how most conversations have started on this.
What advice do you have for voters as they think about the environment when voting?
Are your politicians that you're voting for prioritizing this issue? Do they have an offensive approach rather than a defensive approach? If your politician only is going after the other side and only has a anti mindset, and that's not just a right, that's not an attack on the right. If you're voting for a Democrat and all they're talking about is how they hate oil and gas and that we need to ban it and all this stuff, or you're trying to vote for a Republican and they just are going after every liberal agenda on the environment, that's defense. They don't have their own agenda, they don't have their own ideas, they don't have their own policies. That's not worth voting for. If they have their own ideas, they could be completely wrong, they could be fine tuned, they could be improved. If they have their own agenda, that's worth paying attention to and probably worth voting for. Unfortunately, most people are just anti, 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 and not for anything. And if you're going to the ballot box, voting against something is not a vote for anything. And I believe that on the environment, that's 100% true. And if you're voting for somebody who doesn't have something that they're for, don't be surprised that when they get elected, they're not going to change that. They need to have that in writing before they ever step foot in their office. And unfortunately, most politicians aren't put their don't have their feet put to the fire on that. They don't get asked the tough questions, and it's much easier to show up to a TV interview or a debate and just play that anti game. But don't let them do that.
That leads us to what advice you have for candidates. And talk about candidates at the local, state, and federal levels. What advice do you have for them when it comes to talking about the environment?
I think more candidates need to get out and actually understand the environmental issues and energy issues firsthand. What I wish they would do is go visit local energy sites, go visit local, public lands and private lands, go visit the local environment that they're supposed to be protecting, go understand once they are elected what other areas of the country are dealing with. Go tour everything that you can to understand the issue if you care about it, because that's been the most impactful thing for me. I've been able to go visit coal facilities and solar facilities. I've been able to visit, ocean restoration projects and timber companies, as well as the folks going out and fighting the fires every summer in the forests. And if you actually go out and see these things firsthand, you get an understanding. That's what politicians should be doing in the first place. If you're going to represent a state or a district, you should probably know firsthand what the issues are, not just the talking points, but actually know the people on the ground and the stakeholders. And that sounds like some big lift, like, oh, you got to go tour all these things. I can guarantee you that a politician, especially running for Congress, which is obviously the second largest, area of land that you could run for a federal office, a big area of land, you could tour all the different things that you need to in 1 or 2 days. I mean, it would not take very long for a politician to really understand these issues. And I think as voters, we need to demand, like, so what do you know about, forest management, congressman? You represent a district where forests are under fire every summer. And what do you know about this? And then they answer, and you can tell it's just a platitude. It doesn't actually stand for anything. When's the last time you've gone and visited that that forest? Like, when have you gone and understood what is happening in the ground? When have you gone and talked to the farmer? When have you gone and toured with why are you so against clean energy? Have you talked to the workers in your district that are actually working on that, who are their livelihoods that rely on that, and they're so proud and happy that that has come to your district? Like, we need to force politicians to actually understand what's going on the ground. And as voters, I think that's the most important thing we can do. But also as politicians, that's the best thing you can do to understand the scope and the depth of the issue. Oh, and by the way, if you're going on the campaign trail, it's a pretty cool thing to talk about as an anecdote that you went there. It's a very positive thing to do. So it's not just to prevent the negative, it's also to really represent your community to the best of your ability.